Okay. It looks like we are now live and waiting for participants to join, and we have some people joining. So I believe everyone is on mute when you're joining, so just give this a couple minutes, but welcome to Plant-Based Solutions. This is our intro to Master Class, and we're going to start in just a few minutes. Thanks so much for joining today. Really, really appreciate it. Hope you find some interesting information for everyone. And we're probably just going to give a couple minutes, even though we said at 1 o'clock typically. We'll give it to about 1:05 before we start off. Hope everyone's having a great day. And after a few minutes, I'll give some kind of housekeeping notes relating to Zoom. I trust that most people have used Zoom before, but just in case, we'll go through the details so everyone's comfortable with it. It's fantastic because there's ability to ask questions. There's some chat information that we'll get into, and now I can hear myself speaking. Okay, may even start off. Okay. So one thing we're going to do a little bit in the beginning, but maybe throughout, is just to try to find out a little bit about who's attending today, where people are from. So we're going to put up here a little bit just to try to get a better understanding of everyone's location. So what you'll see pop up on your screen is should be a polling for where you are. And we'll just let that run while we give a few minutes for everyone to join. Sometimes there's technical difficulties where people are uploading Zoom and they have some difficulty with getting it up and running. So we'll give this just a couple minutes. But thanks again for joining us today for Plant-Based Solutions Intro to Masterclass. We're really excited to launch this, and I'm going to be getting into some real interesting details shortly. Okay, we have Ingrid on. Brett, hi Brett, thanks for joining. And Kirsten and Monica, hi Monica. You can use the chat, I'll just kind of start into that now, at the bottom of your screen. If you have any comments, or maybe we can put some links in there as well as things come up, and later on we'll get into a bit of a Q&A, and there's a ability to ask questions as well, and I'll do my best to get to the answers today. Perhaps post this, we'll get questions, answers, and responses back to you shortly. So let's see. All right, we're going to give this just one more minute. I see 2 more people joined. I think we had about, I don't know, about 50 something people signed up for today. So we definitely want to give them a little bit of a chance. The beauty of this is we're recording this to be able to share prior to the launch. So information that's covered, even if you get on late, we'll be able to edit this and share it again. So with that, I believe I'm going to start off here in just a moment. Let's see, while I'm looking at this, it looks like we've got some Midwesterners, some Colorado, I know is representing today, which is great. And let's see if I can also have the share on this. Okay, so I'm going to kick this off. Hi, my name is Daniel Karsavar. I'm the CEO of PlantBased Solutions, and this is an intro to our upcoming first ever master class. Thanks for joining us today and taking the time. Master class is really an amazing new approach to how do we reach more people and build the plant-based community of entrepreneurs and people who are interested in learning about launching a food product company. Um, the way this really started was through years of mentoring with food incubator spaces, shared kitchens, doing one-on-one time, doing that same type of mentoring with food accelerators. And it's challenging because you can only reach a few people, allocated time every month. And this was a way to get to more people. So with that kind of introduction, we just want to touch on, hopefully everyone got an intro on Zoom and how to use it. Just to please remember there's the chat functionality piece to it, so you can type in and there'll be some chats going out to everyone from my team, if there's any questions and getting you responses. There's also a Q&A. As I mentioned, we're going to do some polling questions throughout. Then we'll share those with you a little bit later after we get some more people on board with that. So, as just kind of an intro, the way this is going to work today is I'm going to be doing a lot of sharing a presentation, sometimes just talking or talking over the presentation, whereas the masterclass will also include guest speakers. The reason why we're not doing that in this kind of truncated intro is because it's really, not what masterclass is truly going to be about. So we didn't want to shortchange you on lessons, on modules, on guest speakers, on the Q&A, on the pre-work reading. All those things we'll kind of get into a little bit more about how all of this is going to work for everyone. But the reason of presenting today was really just to give those that were interested in learning more about Masterclass, just an introduction to what's going to be covered, and almost more importantly, why this is so important for your business. I can tell you that, and we'll kind of go through some case studies and scenarios, but I can tell you that more times than not, myself meeting with industry experts that so thankful for them to join. Once we launch the masterclass, they're going to be really there to give insight. Now, these are often speakers that are at shows across the country. I'm fortunate enough to attend so many of the shows. Often I'm asked to be a speaker or a panelist, and I know how difficult it is and how costly it is for people, to attend all of these shows. It could be Natural Products Expo East, the Fancy Food Show West, East. There's so many going on. X-Fest, or now we have the Alt Protein. We started this to really help plant-based companies in helping to grow what we consider to be a new plant-based economy. And this could be, a food product, health and beauty, nutraceutical, anything in this space. We focus, typically on the food space. But what you'll find is, in a similar way, many companies have to still create the pillars of their brand positioning, a go-to-market strategy, a financial model, fabrication or manufacturing of their product, how to launch it, get it out to market, from the distribution side to the sales and marketing or digital marketing side. And one of the biggest things that we do a lot of work with at PlantBased Solutions, and we've gotten so many inquiries about this regarding the masterclass, is how to raise capital. So many companies start off and just don't have the continued finances to really support growth in sales, and it's very sad. And some of these case studies that I'm going to go through are case studies of where we only focused in one area, and that one area did really well for a business, but at the same time the business couldn't survive because they didn't focus on the other parts or all the many multifaceted sides of launching a plant-based product. So the way we look at it is really under 3 pillars of develop, launch, and scale. And that's what we're going to be covering through, through all of this for you. And it's so important to just keep in mind, you don't have to do this alone. What we're offering and providing is a network, a community, advisors, almost kind of, a ad hoc advisory board for you to have access to these experts that are out there that you're probably waiting, at the end of their speaking at an event, to ask a couple questions while there's about 20 other people waiting to ask questions as well. I know I've been there as well when I started off in trying to learn and tap into the expertise of these industry pillars who are out there, thought leaders in this space. We're bringing them to you and creating a space where you can learn in a comfortable environment. We'll get into a little bit today about how this works, how it's broken down. And I want to really explain why we did it this way. There's a lot of webinars out there, and you may have seen some that could ask yourself, well, why should I do this again? Or this one was more expensive or less expensive, or I already sat and watched an hour of somebody speaking. What's unique about this, we'll get into a little bit later, is that it's set up knowing that adult learning happens in a very particular manner. You have limited time. You can only allocate so much time and focus on this. The way people really, adults learn is, I could speak for 8 hours, but you're only going to be able to absorb so much from your interest, from your attention. So we're really parsing it out in small buckets, easily absorbed, time for you to really digest this when it works for you. So even though we're doing this live and we're recording this now, we're going to do the same thing with all of our weekly live webinar sessions, so that if you can't make the live version of it, we'll have it recorded for you. You have access to it when it's convenient for you. Sometimes most entrepreneurs, you might be working at 2, 3 in the morning, and that might be your downtime to go online and listen to a recording, or do an exercise, or record, watch, I should say, one of the recordings that were already there. So that's a little bit of how it's spread out. We also wanted to make sure we touched each section. As I mentioned in the beginning, really each pillar of what it takes to start, a business. One of the things I want to kind of set up for you and go into, give me 1 second as I share my screen, and we should be able to, and I know this sometimes takes a moment, so I'm going to pause and just make sure everyone can see my screen. And you can see the screen. Okay, so I got the okay that we can see the screen here. So I'm just going to move a couple things around here. So someone asked me the other day, as we're talking about marketing and how do we share this information, of what is this truly about? And I really had to think about it, because it's hard to mention all 8 modules and what is this for? And at its core, it's really how to learn, again, this develop, launch, and scale your product company without making costly and time-consuming mistakes. What do I mean by that? You can waste money and then just, you have an endless amount of money perhaps. You could be one of those companies. You've got the funding, great. You'll just spend more money. Usually not the case, but sometimes we hear that. What you can never have enough of is time. And a time-consuming mistake is one that you just wasted 2 months, 3 months, 6 months of your precious time of growing your business, and we know how valuable that time is, by not getting the expert advice and advice that you wish you had for a particular part of the growth of your company. And we'll get into a little bit of what that means with some of the modules, but it's really about taking advantage of what's in front of you, 8 weeks, 2 months, hour and a half a week, and tapping into the experts is such a savings of time to get those nuggets, to get questions answered for you, and to be able to really be part of a larger community who can also share their learnings with you. So we want to really create a dialogue. We're part of this community, part of everything from the Plant-Based Food Association, which you'll learn more about from Michelle Simon, founder, and some other people, part of the Natural Product Shows, part of the Plant-Based World Expo, part of this community. On the investing side, we're part of Glass Wall Syndicate. And we have Lisa, who we'll talk about a little bit later, who's going to be sharing some stories about raising capital, part of Nutrition Capital Network, which is another great entity for pitching and raising capital. So really having all of this, it's almost like pulling the curtain, behind what it takes to start a company, and getting the experts to really tell you directly is what this is about. Okay. So goal setting, I wanted to get into really, at its core. Let me just change this thing here. What is this really about in the sense of who is this for? We were just at the Reducetarian Summit in Washington, D.C., had about 75 people in the room. It was doing kind of a mini master class and asked people to raise their hand if they had a food company. And there was only about 6 people who had a food company in that room. Asked who was interested in starting a food company. Had maybe another, 8 to 10 people who are thinking about starting a food company, which was fantastic. And the other people later on asked some information about why they chose to attend. They're passionate about the plant-based space. They're either a flexitarian moving into the plant-based space. They're the passionate vegan who is just wants to learn more about this industry, the growth industry. We had plenty of investors there. Once the launch, the live IPO for Beyond Meats, it's gotten very exciting for the investment community to come into this space, especially in the meat analog space. So in a sense, for beginners, this is going to give you insight on what it takes. You may have a dream of one day starting this food company that you're so passionate about. What's exciting about being in this space, it really fits into this, is the passion that we find from so many founders who are starting this because of their own life story. Someone in their family, maybe they just love to cook, but usually there's something in there where they had to make a turn, a lifestyle change, and there wasn't something in the marketplace, and therefore they've now come into creating, filling this void, this white space that we'll talk about a little bit later. And it really is a dream for them, but it's one that's, could be costly if they don't understand the business. For those that are existing brands, you may think, well, I've already created my brand, I've already launched my product, but it's really about scaling. It's really about, possibly even rethinking your brand. Is there clarity around your brand story? Are you doing this well or as good as the most successful companies are doing it? I think that's a big takeaway here for existing brands, is you might be doing, just fine, but you want to grow now and you're not sure how. You've launched, you've maybe worked in an incubator kitchen, you've started selling locally, maybe into Whole Foods or something, but a national launch is a whole different ballgame. Just like a startup to, let's say, 500,000 in revenue is one type of business. 500 to $1 million, for those of you that are on the call that have done that, it's a very different business. When you're getting into the 2 million mark, it's a completely different business. You're buying things differently, you're manufacturing differently, you're marketing differently, your sales team, your social media, everything changes. So we want to give you steps along the way, really for kind of a multitude of potential people who are really looking to get into this space. For example, this same type of masterclass or more extended version, I'm going to be launching, doing a 3-day masterclass live in person at the end of this month at ProVeg in Berlin, Germany. ProVeg is a plant-based food accelerator, and having companies that have already launched, some of them not yet, to be able to use that time and really kind of get into it early on in their life cycle is certainly helpful and beneficial. So just wanted to really let people know that this is for you, really from the ideation side to having already launched your product company. So what's my goal for the masterclass? It's really to communicate that you need a strong team, and the only way really to exponentially grow your company and get these business kind of life lessons, learning how to avoid the pitfalls that so many startup companies make, is by really being a member of PlantBased Solutions Master Class. That is the goal for this, is to provide all this wealth of knowledge so that you have what you need and can make the right decisions about how fast you want to grow, how much capital you need to raise. Are you launching in the right category through market analysis? We want to give you these tools. And just, the idea of really building a strong, financially sound company and having those answers way before you even need them or are quizzed by, let's say, a potential investor for your successful company, is by going through this masterclass series, being part of this community, tapping into so many resources that are going to be available to you is really my intention. So who am I? Well, if you're on this, you've probably seen something about me already, either my LinkedIn or whatever bio's been on there. Maybe you even saw 1 or 2 of the videos. I'll be brief. I certainly won't, read anything off to you. But what I can tell you is, my passion in this space is one that's really, truly about, at this point in my career, it's about sharing knowledge, supporting a community, and really working to kind of complement other people's expertise so that we can help so many companies really grow, rise up in this space, and help create, what's to be a new plant-based, food economy, or economy, even beyond food. We're seeing it in packaging and materials and clothing, things like that. So my career, just briefly, has always been in the food world. I started off as a chef, restaurateur, worked in some concept development for restaurant groups, then hotel groups, and then was fortunate enough to, at the right time in my life, to meet a great group of people who were trying to do something special in offering a vegan alternative to frozen yogurt. And for me personally, at the time, I had just gone through, spent a couple of years having recovered from going through cancer and treatment, and then really, recovery after that. What I realized at that point, and why I bring up something so personal, is it was personal for me to change my lifestyle and change what I was doing for my career. Restaurant business is a wonderful business, but I wanted to find something that had more purpose for me personally. And I felt that being part of this plant-based community, natural food space, I felt like there was a greater giving back to the community, healthier foods for people to eat. At the time when I made this kind of change, my daughter was about 7 years old at the time, and I just wanted to feel, a little sense of pride about what I was doing every day, and that I was contributing to a bigger part of, of why we're here. Through that time, I personally went through a lot of also learnings and education on how a plant-based, food system really helps the planet, from sustainability, water usage, and then how really, it's affecting, by removing animals from the food system. Not only are we, saving all of these animals, at the same time we're looking to create something that's more sustainable for the planet as we grow. And just briefly, what we do, who we are, Plant-Based Solutions, develop, this is kind of just as an aside of, why we're coming to the table with this is, we've been focused in this space of branding, sales, product development, fundraising, financial, aptitude to get companies, up and launched. And this is a little bit about some of the companies we've worked with in the past, and I'll kind of take a pause at this point. Let's see if I can go back to I'm actually going to take this. Oh, I'm going to try to. Okay, let's see if this stop sharing. Okay, so I'm going to take a second. I'm not sure if I think we had only so many people. Oh, we only had some respond to the poll, but I will let's see, just to find a little bit more about you and who this community is. I'm going to put this up just because we're, embracing, I learned a lot at the Reducetarian Summit. We've been so focused on the vegan food space, and what we're learning is that, embracing more companies that are looking to move into more plant-based options, as so many food companies, are looking to do. I mean, there's companies like Chobani, it's a, dairy yogurt company, now has a plant-based option. Tyson Foods, a meat company, is now looking into more plant-based options. So this is really the bigger impact, and we want to also just feel like we're supporting that, and not polarizing. We want companies to be 100% plant-based, thinking that's really the way to go, and what where our passion and our mission is aligned. But not everyone's there right now, and we're hoping that educational pieces like this helps more companies, helps more people move into that space. Now, if anyone has questions, feel free to go in at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and you should be able to ask questions, and on the chat side as well. If there's anything that comes up, feel free to put it there. So interestingly enough, we have more. I'm going to close this in 1 second, so if you haven't put in your polling vote yet, do it now. Just slightly more flexitarian than vegan, which is fascinating. I'm really kind of happy to see that a little bit. So just going to go back to sharing here my screen, and that's not what I'm trying to share, and I apologize for that. So I'm going to stop sharing, and this is what I want to share. Okay, so thanks for that. Okay, so you've heard a little bit now of me talking about what this is, and I think it's really important to touch on what the challenges or obstacles are in the decision-making process of is this something that I want to be part of, or become a member of. And so much of this is about what we carry with us from past experiences, past learnings, things we've signed up for, things that we may have signed up for. It's kind of like my gym membership. You sign up, maybe you go, maybe you don't go. I don't go as much as I should. But that's the idea behind this, that we want to say we've really made it easy. So some of these questions of, is this too difficult to really understand the business? Oh, excuse me, technical difficulties there. There we go. We try to make it easy. How do we make it easy? We are recording each session. We're going to provide the start of the week, or as soon as the one lesson ends, you'll receive and have access to, be pushed out to you automatically. The pre-work, pre-reading that will go on for the next session, those exercises that will happen post a weekly session, and really being part of this membership, you're going to have access as we have more expert interviews. We're going to have bonus interviews that aren't really part of the 8 kind of pillar segments and modules that we've set up, but we're going to just continue to add them. We have so many people reaching out to us. We love what you're doing. Love to be part of, the PlantBased Solutions Master Class. Can we contribute? We really want to talk about selling on Amazon. We really would love to get more people to understand X, Y, and Z. So getting that out there is really key, and we're just going to keep adding to what we've already started for 8 modules. We find people who, again, have a dream of starting a business. It costs too much money to start a business. Well, let's figure out how much that is, and is it the right path for you? One of the things that we'd love to do is help people really achieve, be set up for success to achieve whatever their dreams are in this space, to start a business, something that they're really passionate about, but with the sound understanding of what it takes to do this. How much is too much for someone, and where is your comfort level? Where there's people who want to just have their food business and sell at the local farmers market, which is fantastic. We love local, organic farmers markets, and that could be a great space. And maybe that's where your comfort level is, or your risk level of an entrepreneur. So we want to touch on that piece as well, to know what does it take? Is it friends and family funding to start with? How much capital do you have to raise or get investors to be part of to get to stage 1? What's the next stage? And it's important just to know and not wonder what it really takes. A lot of people, we get the kind of challenge of, hey, I can do this. I just came out of law school. I've got my MBA. Doing a food company is, it's not rocket science. I agree, it's not rocket science. But at the same time, why have to go through, learn those mistakes, or the hard way, the costly way, the way that you don't get the time back? And we really want to get the message across that you don't have to do it alone. At the end of the day, you can't do it alone. The more people you talk to, the more advice you get. We're just trying to make that whole process easier for you. We also get the, hey, I'm not an expert and I just can't afford the expertise at this point. My recommendation is always, spend the money now early on to learn the most you can learn from the people who've already done this before, and that's a valuable money spent. We see startups wasting money on sometimes overpriced, I don't know, it could be, I met a company, they hadn't launched and they had raised some money and they were going to spend $85,000 on their branding. It's great, but do you understand what your go-to-market strategy is? Do you have your costs laid out for your company? And they were all about spending the money on the brand, but they weren't ready to spend, at that time, I think, $5,000 on being really savvy about their business and a strategy and a 3-year plan, and to be able to, sit in front of any investor and have a really intelligent conversation about their business. So again, when people are like, well, we're not ready yet, it's hard to get across the idea that you have to do it now. Feel like you've gotten that expert advice. Once you are confident because you've heard from the experts and you've done it, then move on. Taking the time, I think we've already touched on, and again, just this idea of investing in your business. So who's done this before? What companies have worked with, and what are some examples? So I brought in a couple kind of case study examples to talk about, because what you need to know is how this has worked for others. I'm going to talk about Umami. Umami is a fantastic brand, great founders, passionate, had a really interesting and unique idea. But when I first met them, the idea was a little scattered in terms of how well defined the brand was. From a brand integrity, could you just look at what their products were and their brand and say, I get it. I know what they're about. I know what they're going to do. I know what they're not going to do. And that's part of the brand positioning piece. So we had to have a long conversation and some exercises and some market research around what it means to really position your brand for success. For their example, it was about almost polarizing the market a little bit because the spreads market at the time had been very watered down, a lot of hummus and other spreads out there with flavors that were just, your everyday flavors. What was interesting is they were going for the umami flavor with a lot of Asian themed ingredients, but not fully. So in showing them the path that by having a more focused idea of the brand positioning, we could then reformulate, get really innovative around ingredient, kind of biodiversity of ingredient, flavor profiles, and then helping them find and oversee the manufacturing with a third-party co-packer. So help them on the formulation, on the brand positioning, getting them to the co-packer, looking at what their go-to-market strategy was, and helping build out a financial model. And that financial model was required before you go to a co-packer. Why? Because you need forecasting, you need production amounts, you need ingredient volume to see if you're finding the right fit. I do this type of mentoring with the Chobani Food Incubator and came in as the co-packer whisperer was the title they gave me, because it's really about finding that balance between a relationship with a co-packer, forecasting the right space, and because we did something that wasn't, after looking at the market, that wasn't in that space, being really bold, a little polarizing on flavor, but just really hitting the mark on something that was authentic and had that brand integrity. Well, we took it to the Natural Products Expo, and Umami won the 2017 Best Product in the savory snack category. So this was a fantastic story about really focusing in that area and how it helped another company. Now, Maxine Heavenly is going to be actually one of the speakers talking about putting together a business model. Fantastic brand. We met them out in San Francisco at the Nutrition Capital Network. Just blown away by what fantastic product, how much they grew on such a shoestring budget, so how really thoughtful they were with their spend. But now they were looking to grow and obviously looking to raise capital, but was still trying to figure out how to put together a financial model that was grounded on real industry standards, not just a projection and then, oh, next year it'll be, double that. Every investor jokes around, great, you're going to be double the next year. Yeah, we've seen that before, but is it realistic? So putting together a financial model that was based on their cash flow, based on how many stores they were going into, what the velocity or the turns, how many units per SKU or per flavor per store that were being sold, and forecasted that out with adjustments for everything from cost of goods, reducing overtime, and yes, sorry, there was a question about, is raising capital going to be covered? And yes, it is. We have someone coming in, we'll get to all the modules that will be covered in this. So not only did we help them put together their financial model, we helped them with their pitch deck, did some reviews, some amendments to it, and one of the events that we host every year is at the Natural Product Expo, where plant-based mission-driven investors are basically meeting one-on-one and curating which companies they want to meet with. So this isn't a stand in front of a room and pitch to a bunch of people who probably aren't going to invest in your company, but those investors who your business model fits their ethos, their strategy, where you are along the way, if it's a startup, if it's $1 million, if it's 5 million, we were fitting the right people with the right brands with investors, and was just so happy that Maxine's Heaven Lincoln joined and met with investors among 50 other. We had over 150 brands apply for that. So just wanted to give you a couple case studies of how this kind of work and getting this kind of insight really, has helped. So just to now step back, give you a little bit more of an overview of, what the master class is. I'm going to really break down just a little bit here. There we go. Okay. So for those who hadn't seen this yet, wanted to just take a few minutes to talk about these different modules and why they're so important and who's going to be speaking. So to start with, we have brand positioning. So David Swintowski is someone we've worked with for a while now, brought us a amazing company called Improved Nature. So this is a plant-based alternative to chicken nuggets and chicken tenders being sold in food service in schools, but also had the idea at the time that they might want to go into retail. So we had to do some market analysis, look at what the space was, try to understand and determine where is the white space and how are other brands positioning themselves? How are they marketing themselves? Are they high end? Are they kid friendly? Are they limited ingredients? Is this the, economy, alternative, or is this the, high end, clean label, non-GMO, sustainable, piece? Those are, the kind of things that we went through over a process of doing the research, interviewing the team and the founders, and trying to make sure that they had a voice for their brand, so that they were positioned correctly, so that they understood who their consumers were. An interesting case, they had the consumer of food service, so you had GMs or chefs that were buying. You also had nutritionists at schools that were advocating for, and at the same time you have distributors, right, who are buying the products. So you have to have unique messaging, perhaps, for many different aspects of it. So the second module, product innovation. So Mark Millardi, part of Next. Next is part of New Hope. They run the Expo West and Expo East. They do market research and have such insight and analysis on and great ways that you could find out about your product, how consumers will react to your product even before you go to market. And what's great about that is you have the ability to look at everything from your verbiage, how you're marketing, how you're talking about it, to which product should you launch with, what's your next flavor. And he's going to really give some great insight about how to do that, how to do it cost effectively. Doesn't necessarily cost $30,000, $50,000. You can continue to submit questions as well, and just want to make a note of that. Let me just see what other. So yes, there's going to be, so there's a question about, just to read off the question, are we going to be using templates and things that you can use in your business? That's exactly what we're doing here. At each step, we will give you not just pre-work, which is kind of like pre-reading, understanding of the subject matter, links to other experts that are out there, or case studies, white papers, but we're going to give you templates, forms, things that you can fill in to figure out, okay, how do I create my own branding positioning? How do I look at product innovation? Is this product innovation because what's in the marketplace? Is it product innovation around flavor profiles and new, ingredients that are popular? Those are some of the, pieces that we're going to look into, but you're going to have those tools from business models to marketing strategies, how to budget them, how to look at the different parts of this, to even templates for capital raise pitch decks and really be part of that process. And we're contributing our time to provide feedback in many areas of this, as well as some one-on-one time for those once they've kind of gone through this whole process. So I'll just touch on a couple more here in terms of, I mentioned the business model, scaling your business. We're going to have one of the co-founders of Vistro, which is an amazing vegan prepared meal company that ships to you already prepared meals, frozen. I was fortunate enough to visit their manufacturing facility in California. And what we're going to talk about for example, is what are the challenges around manufacturing yourself? What are the challenges? I'll get into a little bit more about scaling for your own facility. At what point do you need to maybe look at a co-packer? And how do you best navigate that and not wait till it's too late? Those are the things that can really cost a business when they're going to market. There's opportunities that are sometimes fortunate and unexpected when Walmart or Costco is ready to bring you on, but you're not nearly ready to jump in because you can't manufacture, or you may not have the funding to support those sales. So we want to give you strategies to understand how to have those conversations so that you can keep those relationships long-term and say, hey, you know what, we're not ready next quarter, but in 3 quarters, we are going to be ready. We're going to be ready with our manufacturing. We'll have the funding to support the marketing. I just really want to keep drawing this back to how does this helpful for you? And at each point, we're going to tie into understanding your business along the way. We'll get into really unique consumer marketing, digital e-commerce marketing, and I mentioned, which is very important for a lot of people, which is raising capital. So with that, I'm going to take a little pause. I know I'm still giving you a lot of information here, but I wanted to get into just to make sure on the chat and Q&A sessions that I've covered everyone's questions so they don't have to wait too long. Okay, so interesting question about how much of this are you getting really kind of a solid grounding through masterclass versus how much do you may have to get, may require engaging plant-based solutions from a consulting side. What we're hoping is that you have the tools here to really move forward with growing your company on your own if you have that business acumen, I guess is the best way to put it. If you've done something like this before, we might give you some, interesting tools, that help you kind of focus in the food side, right? So I've talked to people who have done, they come from fashion or they come from tech, so they know marketing, they know branding, but they don't know food. And the way food, which is, so, tied to people's passion and it's a little bit different, right? And unique on the marketing side, on the business side. Distribution, is it frozen? What's the shelf life? At the end of the day, your brand, if you're selling a food product, you're nourishing people, and hopefully, you look at things like food safety and quality as key tenets, of your business, and we want to make sure you're really positioned well for that. If someone feels that they want to go and do a deeper dive, they may want to kind of move their business faster than they're willing to, than they would possibly do on their own. Certainly, we'd be happy to, talk about, further engagement that might expedite the process for you. But we do want people to feel that by going through this, they'll have some great templates for starting a business, for improving upon their business, and growing it. So I want to take the rest of the time, which is now getting close. Let me just go back into the share screen here, and okay. Hopefully you can still see my screen. So I wanted to give you a little bit of an idea of what do you get, what is this about, how is this going to work, and just point out that the PlantBased Solutions website will have a login. When you go into contacts, there's a drop down for members, and you'll have, once you become a member, you'll have a login, and it will open up a whole portal where you'll have information, downloads, videos, the educational pieces for every week. Now they're released to you on a weekly basis. Why don't we give it all in advance? Because that's not how people really learn, and we want to really stick through this method of giving you plenty of time to get into the details of it. If you can join us for the live, which will have Q&A, wonderful, join us for the live. If you can't, we'll have pre-recorded the whole session, and you can access it at any time. So here's an example of what it would look like on for week 1, positioning your brand for success, who the guest speaker is. You'll tap into the FAQs, any recordings, any support material, and then post the first session, that's when you'll get an exercise. We want you to have really done a little reading on your own. We'll still present everything to you, and then give you the tools, a form, a spreadsheet, something that you can then do the exercise yourself for how it relates to your brand, because that's why we're here. This is all about how it's relating to your brand. And then you have the ability to submit that so we can take a look at it and give you some feedback on it. And if you have questions, we're here to answer those questions. So you're really part of a support system in becoming a member. And that's a little bit, just wanted to give you a kind of a peek of how this is going to appear for you. So, what is really the benefits? What are you getting at the end of the day here? And just really wanted to take the time to point this out. I kind of skipped ahead a little bit, but want you to understand what's in this. So it's 8 weeks live, 1.5 hour sessions, access to industry experts. There's Q&A sessions. We'll spend a lot of time on that, so everyone's heard. There's some pre-work reading, but we're keeping it simple. Because we know you're busy, you're working, you're starting your brand, or maybe you're just trying to learn this space. We're going to be pulling in community networking. We'll be launching a private Facebook page. Seems like that's versus on the portal might be a little bit easier to communicate that way, which is great because then you'll meet others that are doing this. Again, it's being a little bit more connected. We know that many founders, when you're busy, your head's down, you're doing it, you can feel a little isolated. So we want to create a larger community for you and tie you into the community that we're a part of, and make sure that you're getting this information from available sources. Again, there's some great groups that are out there that are doing amazing work, and we want to just make sure you're aware of who they are. So that we're part of a bigger community, bigger than just us. It's about connecting you to others. So we're going to be doing some private events over time. We'll also be linking to other events that are out there that you may or may not be aware of. But when there's kind of limited, tickets or limited access online, we're going to be doing our best to kind of, get groupings of access for our members. Again, this is all about that access to everything that's going out there as much as we can to you, or at least, let you be aware of them. The worst thing is we hear an event happens or we're speaking at an event, and then the next day we meet someone who says, oh my God, I wish I knew that event happened, that it existed. I would have gone, or I would have planned to, show my product there. I just wasn't aware of it. There's just so much out there. So bonus material, we're just going to keep adding. I mean, there's just no way around that. If you've become a member, we're just going to keep adding all the bonus material. Over time, after this first 8-week period, we're going to have each module, probably available in some fashion for some people who just want to look at fundraising alone. But what they won't have access to is all the bonus information. So it's clearly just worth that as we grow, we'll just keep adding to this and partnering with more people who want to focus on different subject matters. If it's food companies that are focused on allergen free, if it's what's the legal side of labeling, all of that is going to be added to this these modules. Individualized follow-up assessment, mentoring sessions. So that's going to happen after members complete the full session. And initially, we are launching this, kind of getting to the price. We're launching this at $24.95. But for people that have joined today, we have a intro 20 code, which is a coupon code that's going to take 20% off, which brings it down to $19.96, about a $500 savings. So what does that mean? It's the equivalent of $250 per session. So when someone tells me, I was at an event and an investor was there who said, wow, Daniel, this sounds like really amazing. What you're offering people is just amazing access, amazing information. It's so valuable. And I said, well, we've gotten some feedback that it's a little expensive. And he joked, he's like, if they can't invest $2,500 in the success of their company, why are they coming to me asking to raise $500,000 or $1 million for their company? A lot of times the priorities aren't aligned. So that's equivalent about $250 per session, which if you go on our website, that's the cost of just a 1 hour one-on-one call with nothing else. So it's really a value in the sense of a discounted value for what you're getting. Why are we doing that? It goes back to the mentoring piece. We're trying to reach more people and give them more than we could on just one-on-one calls, more than we could with just our expertise of plant-based solutions, and really get it to a point where people see this as a continuing membership, where after this 8 module sessions, we're going to be working on new modules. We're going to be working on a continued series of, as the industry grows and expands, topics keep coming up, as well as nuanced pieces around distribution, around other parts of this. So there's a question. Please give the details of individualized follow-up assessment, mentoring session. Is that one session? So yes, we're doing a complimentary, in addition to kind of this one-on-one, we're doing a complimentary 1 month mentoring, which will include 1 hour per week for a month for those that have completed. So actually you can use that, the equivalent of that 4-week session up to, I believe it's for 6 months. Why? You may not need an hour every week. You may want to wait until your business is moving along, see that you're at a new stage and say, hey, we have a new growth opportunity. Someone wants to pick us up at 250 Mid-Atlantic, retail stores. What are your thoughts? Here's what they're offering us. Then we can look into the meat of your company, plant-based meat, a little bit more. And at the same time, I'm going to get a lot for that one. So at the same time, it's, it could be on a capital raise. It could be, you may want some initial advice. And then when you have some, more things happening with investors or questions that come up, how to position your investment, happy to do it then. So the question was, once you join, remember, have access as long as we need it. So yes, once you join, you're going to have access. We're going to keep building this. Now, new members that join after our initial one may have limited access over time, but for our really debut and the first people that are signing up, we do want to make that available to them. So that's an added bonus by doing it now and not waiting for the second masterclass series or the third or the fourth. They won't have the same benefits. It's just kind of the nature of doing this type of webinar. And we'll really value your feedback. We want to hear from the members. Find out who are the experts that they want to talk to. We've just moved our corporate offices to WeWork Food Labs in New York City. Again, access to so many experts, investors. There's just a multitude of learnings that we can really tap into on this. So if you do this now, please use the intro 20 for additional 20% off. And okay, so this was just something that I wanted to think through of what's the decision making process for people. You have two choices. You really don't do anything. You said, oh, this is interesting, could be good, but maybe not for me. But I don't have the time, and I'll just do it on my own. Sadly, I've seen so many examples of companies that had either a good brand, good product, both, couldn't figure out marketing, couldn't figure out sales teams, couldn't figure out how to work with their distributors, didn't have the knowledge of digital marketing and how that could help their company, or why they weren't getting anywhere with raising capital, and then sadly they had to close their business. And there were so many times that's happened. We wanted to make sure that members had all of this. The other piece of this is it's a smaller investment for so many other things that you're going to invest into your company. It's also just to make for everyone's ease, we have put in a 30-day money back guarantee. So if you've actually gone through 4 modules and then you come back to us and say, hey, it wasn't what I thought it would be, no problem, we'll give you your money back in full. So there's really no risk at this point in jumping in. How do you do that? You go to plantbasedsolutions.com /master-class, or there'll be links in the chat as well that you can just click onto. And we'd love to see what questions you have about this. Wanted to give more time for questions. I know we have quite a few participants, so I'd really like to utilize this time. Happy to go back into the different modules and kind of talk about how this has helped other companies if we don't have any initial questions. So with that, I'm going to, I think, stop the share for right now so I could go in and see who's on chat. Okay, so we do have a link in the chat for becoming a member. And if there are any questions, now's the time. So let's see. I think I shared the results for the vegan. Did I share that for the vegan vegetarian? No? Okay, I shared it now. And let's see, I want to use this just a second because we had a couple more in here that I wanted to see if we could tap into. If anyone else can help me with sharing the next poll, I've run into a little difficulty on the poll side. So feel free to launch the next question so we can get some information back from those attendees. And without the questions, I'm just going to go back and take another minute to share. Let me just make sure I'm sharing my screen with everyone. And Okay. Here's what I wanted to sit on here. And another question here. We're able to share our case studies or specific questions for our business with the featured speaker in Masterclass and get their focused comments and suggestions. So during the live, there's definitely Q&A for the speakers. We'll probably pre-record some just in case, from a technical side, having, pre-recorded could be useful, but they'll be there live. If for some reason schedules and they cannot be live and we've gone through the Q&A, portion, the questions will go back to the speaker and you'll get answers for them. So I think as it relates to questions relating to your own challenges, yes, that's exactly what that whole section's for. We're dedicating, about a third of the time to really engage the audience, of the members so that they can bring these questions up and get answers to them. And if there's something that we can't answer immediately, we'll certainly, if they want to defer to another expert, we'll bring those people on board or get the questions back to you, from other experts. Again, this is going to be kind of an interactive, process. Great. Okay, so keep typing your questions in. While those start adding up, I'm going to just take a couple more minutes just to really show you how this ties back to your business. In the go-to-market strategy module, what Carla is going to be talking about is really trying to identify for your brand what's a strategic growth model. Could be your launch, could be growth into different sales channels. How many people out there, might really understand food service? We found that very few people understand what food service is. That could be anything from restaurant chains to contract food service, schools, universities, Google Cafe kind of places. Well, going into that market, you'll learn, and you'll learn how to identify the attributes of a retail market relating to your cost of goods, and your selling price, relating to your distributor cost, your marketing dollar spend, geographic location versus, let's say, food service or e-commerce. The natural space, meaning like the natural food stores, is a little bit of a, I don't want to say it's a dying area, but Costco and Walmart are the largest buyers of organic products. So going into natural isn't the same that it used to be. Now major chains, be it H-E-B in Texas, Kroger in the Midwest, they all want natural foods, plant-based foods, clean label foods, non-GMO, organic. But it's trying to understand what is your strategy and at what point are you going to grow? Because an investor wants to see year-over growth. So how are you going to achieve that? The chances are economically you can't achieve it all on day one. I use the example of if you have all the money to spend, all the resources to hire with that money, sure, then you could launch to market in possibly every channel, but that's not reality. So how do you focus? Where do you focus? We're going to really give you the tools so that you can understand how to do that. And you'll have some case studies and some examples of how that's been done. We talked about the business plan. So a question came up of, is that a business plan that we could utilize? Well, there's, a short version and a greatly, detailed version. We're going to at least start with the short version to make sure you truly understand it. It's a very complicated set of, linked spreadsheets. But it's about the foundations. You could plug it into your, maybe you have a CFO or someone who's helping you on the financial side. They could plug it into their model. It doesn't have to be our actual template, but we will share a template with you. And more importantly, we'll share with you what goes in the template. What are the standards? What are the percentages you should be accounting for distribution, for storage, for loss, shrinkage in production. Someone said, well, my numbers aren't working because it should be X plus because it costs this much to make. I said, yeah, but when you make it, every ingredient you put in doesn't come out in a package. There's loss in production, and you need to know how that's going to affect your business. Maybe not so much at launch, but certainly in year 2 and year 3, when your volumes are so much higher that could be 10% yield loss on manufacturing through equipment, and you have to understand that. Or when you sell in and you're all excited, and we got into Wegmans, and great, and 90 days later come, you get paid, and it's only 2/3 of what you thought it would be. Well, what happened? Well, we want to show you how to account for that so that you're not caught off guard. These are the costly mistakes that people make and can really, really hurt their businesses. So we're going to go through, give you a template, make sure you can apply it to your business, challenge your assumptions, and utilize that as a tool to really run and operate your business. Unique consumer marketing. A lot of people talk about in-store marketing, great. But how are you marketing? This is the idea of push-pull. So in-store marketing is the push, right? That's could be your signage, your packaging design, which will be by the way, will be a bonus module on packaging design. Didn't make it into the first 8, but we are going to be adding that on. What are you doing in store, couponing, things like that. But also, maybe more important is how are you getting consumers to pull, right? How are you getting them excited about it, educated about your product when you can't maybe afford sampling, or maybe the retailer doesn't allow sampling that you can control, and you question, the efficacy of it. This could be everything from brand ambassadors to, what are some unique ways to get your product in people's hand so that they're going to be excited and start asking for it. Ingrid's going to be talking about digital marketing, e-commerce. So I think it was last year in San Francisco at the NCN Nutrition Capital Network, someone had stood up giving kind of a state of the union of where the industry is going. And one of the statistics, I think it was Carlotta from New Hope had said that the prior year had been the first year that they had on record where more natural food companies launched e-commerce more than in retail. Well, a lot of consultants and industry experts will talk to you about what they know. And for the last 100 years, what we've known is you launch into retail. And we want to start challenging some of these assumptions. And we want to get you the tools to understand what it means to do digital marketing correctly, to do e-commerce. How do you support via Amazon? That's going to be a bonus module as well. I'm going to make a note to get that word out there. These are the things that, what's your strategy? How do you budget towards that effectively? Again, there's another low-hanging fruit. People tell me, oh, I'm not putting the money into, digital marketing. Right now I'm focused on, just on the retail. Okay, but how do people know you're there? If you don't have a cohesive and tied in digital marketing plan that's geo-targeted, that's effective to educate your target consumer market, right? Goes back to brand positioning. Who's your consumer? How do you communicate to them? Where are they in the course of their day, their week, their year, that is going to effectively connect with them about your brand? So all these really come together. And that digital marketing piece, we've seen such amazing work. We've done this with a lot of companies of really bringing together solutions that fit people's budget, that are done properly. It's not always about spending money on advertising. It's about making sure your website is properly functionally set up so that your SEO is what it needs to be, that it's tied into your social media, that one feeds the other, right? You've got a lot going on your site. Another piece of this, the last piece on this is, people are telling me, yeah, we've got it on Amazon, but we're spending a fortune. We're not really making that much money on it. And I said, great, how much of this, e-commerce sales is going to your website? Oh, we're not focused on that yet. Again, this is a low-hanging fruit that if they go to your website, you're selling at a better margin. So where do you put your dollars? I think any CFO is going to tell you, put them where you have the greatest return. Put them where you have the greatest margin. And if you have a product that fits well for e-commerce, some fit better than others, right? If it's shelf stable, if it's light, easy to ship, something that's used frequently, maybe you could be on a subscription model. That being said, Vistro is a great example. Their whole business model is frozen complete meals. So it's a little heavier, it's frozen, a little more costly, but it works. So to understand this, and not only that, but then you have people's emails, you control your messaging to them, you have special deals to them. It's really, again, for some reason, it's just a low-hanging fruit that a lot of people aren't taking full advantage of driving e-commerce traffic to your website. And then, lastly, Lisa Ferrier from Stray Dog Capital, which is really part of this really amazing group that are focused on raising capital for mission-driven companies, and the Glasswall Syndicate. So a lot of the companies that are part of Glasswall, which Lisa oversees as well, are mission-driven, coming from philanthropy. So these are people that were funding animal rescue or PETA or other smaller projects out of their funds, maybe smaller family offices, and now are looking to invest in companies that are helping to remove animals from the food system. So she knows this space better than anyone, is probably a speaker, if not panelist, at every event I've been to in the last 6 months to a year, focused on this space, and is going to really provide those tools, that insight, going back to the question of how do you use it, how can this help you and your company, sorry about that, of getting more knowledgeable about how to raise capital, what are the strategic approaches to it, when should you raise, how to raise well enough strategically in advance before you think you need it. I had a call about 2 weeks ago. I was on the West Coast, and they're like, we really need to raise capital within 2 months. It's like, why? Well, Walmart wants to put us into all these hundreds of stores, and we just we're ready to go. We just can't support the marketing. Maybe there's some creative ways to raise money for your cost of goods, packaging, things like that, with a signed PO. So just we'll get into that during that module, that there are some really creative ways to raise money without giving equity when you have a set amount of business that's coming in. But if not, what's the strategy? So listen, as we wrap up, I just want you to know that if there's more questions that come up after we finish, you can certainly go on info@plantbasedsolutions.com. You could certainly reach out to me directly, Daniel@plantbasedsolutions.com, with more questions that you may have. And I'll just kind of bring you back to this last piece of making sure you have our website. I tried on the I'm going to stop this share. I'm going to try one last time on the polling, but I don't seem to be able to add more of the questions, but that's okay. We'll get those out to everyone later. So with that, I just wanted to really wrap up, say thank you so much for your time. I hope you see the value in Plant-Based Solutions Master Class. Again, happy to answer any questions. Because you were on, today, we are, I think it should be on the chat. Please, on the chat, any and all, codes and offers because you were on today's call will be momentarily typed into the chat section. And just really, again, wanted to say, thanks for taking this time. Hope you find it interesting. If it's not, necessarily, for you, pass it along to someone who you think might be valuable for. We're doing some special arrangements with incubator kitchens across the country, internationally as well. So we're going to be bringing in members from, from all over for this. And it does go live on Thursday, October 24th. So there's, still some wiggle room to put it into your schedule, and we'll get more information out to you as it comes up. But thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and look forward to seeing you as one of our new members. Have a great day. Thanks.